Welcome back to Life in Review. I'm Josefa Salinas, your host. Well, you know how much I absolutely adore National Geographic. I tell you, I grew up with National Geographic, and some of you may think that you remember that it's just this magazine, but it's so much more than a magazine now. There's something for everybody in the house. There's something for every person's way of life. And for your kids, National Geographic has done the amazing. They have launched a book series, the National Geographic book series, the popular Zeus the Mighty series is, oh my gosh, it's such a great book series. And they've got a new one now. It's called Zeus the Mighty. And with us today is Crispin Boyer. Oh, Crispin, this one is so good. The Maze of the Menacing Minotaur. It's so good to have you back. How are you?
I'm very good, Josefa. Thanks so much. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's so
Pleasure
good
to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you here. And I mean, you know how much I love National Geographic, and this book is an absolute delight. So, talk to me a little bit about Zeus the Mighty, the Maze of the Menacing Minotaur.
I'm happy to. So, Zeus the Mighty is a hamster who lives in a pet center in Athens, Georgia. He lives with a cohort of other animals, and they all believe that they are Greek gods, and that the pet center is actually ancient Greece. And in the first book, they went on a quest for the golden fleas, which, fleas generally aren't something that animals in a pet center want. But Zeus, who's kind of a funny little hamster, he's got a big ego for a little guy. He thought the golden fleas were a good thing. And so they basically went through the adventure of Jason and the Argonauts in the first book and defeated a dragon, found the golden fleas, found the Argo, which is their boat for getting around the pet center. It's actually a robot vacuum. It was a way to kind of teach kids about ancient Greek mythology, but through a fun adventure. And now we have the sequel, which is a spin on the Minotaur myth. In Greek mythology, there was Theseus who defeated the Minotaur at the center of the maze. Well, in this book, now Zeus and the gang find themselves in a maze. So they had the Argo, which is their way of getting around ancient Greece, and it's actually a robot vacuum. And so at the end of the first book, they finally found the golden fleas, and everyone was happy, and peace had come back to Greece. Now in the second book, there's a strange heat wave going on, and Zeus and the gang find themselves tracking the source of the heat through a maze at the bottom of Greece, and they end up coming face to face with a fearsome Minotaur. And this is a spin on the Minotaur myth from Greek mythology, which has a maze, has a Minotaur, and the mythological story is a lot more frightening, whereas in this book it's scary, intense, but at the same time there's a lot of fun. And Zeus and the gang. You got Athena, who's a cat. She's a goddess of wisdom. She's the one who's in charge of driving the Argo, and so it's just a fun way to kind of teach Greek mythology to kids without actually telling them that you're teaching them. It's kind of a sneaky way of teaching kids about Greek mythology.
Now, why did you decide on Greek mythology to teach kids?
Well, it's just there's so much source material to pull from. There's so many tales of monsters and heroes. They're not really, Greek mythology can be kind of dark and scary. It's not really fables. There's not a lot of lessons you can learn from it in terms of right or wrong, but it's more about the way that the Greeks looked at their world, and it's how they explained their world. The way that the sun would come up, or there would be floods, or things like that. It would be Zeus hurling lightning bolts, or it would be Hades in the underworld causing trouble, or it would be Poseidon causing tsunamis. So it's more about just the way that the ancient Greeks kind of looked at the world and also treated each other. And it certainly, Greek mythology would inform the Greeks about how maybe to live their lives. There was a virtue to be wise or smart or kind. So these are kind of stories that can follow along with those lessons. But at the same time, there's so many different monsters and artifacts and strange, like helmets of invisibility, and there's all these cool toys and things that the Olympian characters can find. So it's like an unlimited source of material.
Right.
And these stories have been told over and over since they're originally written 3,000 years ago. So it really is it's a fun way to just put a new spin on old stories.
Now, what made you start writing kids' books, and how did you get with National Geographic?
Well, that's interesting. I started out as a newspaper reporter, and then I went into writing about, of all things, video games. So I wrote about video games for a video game magazine for a long time, 12 years. And video game writing is kind of like sports writing. You know, you're trying to describe video games, and you have to be very colorful, and you have to really capture a young audience's interest. And that kind of just led into writing about, you know, a more vast selection of topics. So I started looking around for other magazines to write for, and I found, you know, National Geographic Kids, which was a magazine that I grew up with when I was young. It was actually called World Magazine, and it just, you know, the thing I liked about it was the variety. There'll be, you know, a story about, a science-based story about thunderstorms, and then there'll be a story about a rescued sea otter. So it was just fun to suddenly have all this variety of topics to write about. And I've always been, you know, kind of a science nerd, and I started writing for their kids magazine, and then eventually they liked me. They asked me if I wanted to write books for them. So yeah, I started writing, and it was mostly nonfiction books. And then it's funny because you don't think of fiction when you think of National Geographic, but then they decided to get into more some fiction-based projects for kids. Once again, to help kind of teach about science in the world, but through engaging stories. And they asked if I wanted to write a fiction series, and of course I jumped on it. And here I am with the Zeus the Mighty series.
Now, how many books can we expect in this series, and what age group does it target?
The goal is to do 7 books, and the age group is middle school, so it's around 8 to 12. This is the second book just came out, the Maze of the Menacing Minotaur. I've actually might have written a couple more already, and they're going through the process. You know, they're such huge undertakings. A big team helps me put them together, editors, and there's an illustrator. The books are fully illustrated. It's really wonderful illustration. So, we're just getting started. And fortunately, like I said, there is no end of stories from Greek mythology to pull from. So you're going to end up seeing all of the classics, I think. We've kind of planned out the series, so you're going to see all the classic monsters and characters once the series hits its finale.
Oh, that is awesome. How about some social media where people can find out more about you and more about these incredible National Geographic youth books?
Well, it's pretty easy. It's just one website, ZeusTheMighty.com. You can go there. You can play some Zeus the Mighty games. You can see some of the history behind the fiction, and you can learn about all the characters. That's where you need to go, ZeusTheMighty.com.
Excellent. Well, Crispin, it is such a joy to have you here, and I really look forward to having you back when the next book comes out, and continued success to you, and I just can't wait to see what Zeus does next.
Me too. Thank you very much, Josefa.
All right. Have a beautiful day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Did you know the IRS has sent out $4 million worth of payments by prepaid debit cards in plain envelopes? Yeah, you know the stuff that you look at and you go, oh, this must be junk mail, and you just throw it out? Maybe not such a good idea. You might want to actually open this particular envelope because it could be your prepaid debit card. On the phone with us to talk about fraud prevention and things to to look out for is Kathy Stokes. She's the director of fraud prevention over there at AARP. Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
Hey, Josefa. I'm doing okay. Thank you.
All right. So talk to me about this. Since when did the IRS send out prepaid debit cards?
Yeah, we're pretty surprised too. But last week, the IRS started sending out prepaid Visa debit cards to 4 million people who they don't have bank account numbers for. And of those, I think about 482,000 live in California. So they either have received this or will receive it. And the catch is it's in a white envelope that doesn't look like anything official. It comes from an Omaha, Nebraska return address from Money Network Cardholder Services. And so a lot of people just look at this and go, oh, it's junk mail. Or they're like, oh, this must be a scam, and they get rid of it. Well, lo and behold, their very, very important economic impact payment was loaded onto that Visa prepaid debit card, and they've just thrown out their check. But all is not lost because they can get it back.
So how do you know? I mean, I throw out a lot of junk mail. and the IRS doesn't have my banking information. So I may have already thrown it out. How would I even know if I threw it out? Because I just toss it right there. I got a trash bin right next to my mailbox, and I look through and I just toss.
Yeah, well, I hope you also shred when it's identifiable information. That's another conversation. But the way you would know is that a couple of ways. Every time the IRS sends out a payment in whatever form they're sending it out with these economic stimulus payments, they will send a subsequent letter in about 2 weeks, 15 days, saying, hey, we've sent this amount of money to you in this way. If you did not receive it, there's information in that letter on how to contact the IRS to figure out where your payment is and get it directed to the right place.
Aha. Okay, and now why would somebody be getting this rather than having it just deposited into accounts? Let's talk about that process so that people fully understand. The IRS doesn't have my bank account information because I haven't gotten a refund from them in, years. So that's why, they would have no reason to have my bank account information. When I owe them money or we've called it even, when we call it even, I don't even have to speak to them. When I owe them money, I just send them a check.
Yeah, well, I had suspected that anybody that didn't have their bank account information and therefore couldn't get the direct deposit would get the paper check in the mail, and I believe many have. And we've even seen examples of what they look like so that people don't fall victim to fake checks. But I think these are specific people that the IRS said they needed to do it this way because they didn't have the bank account information. They probably thought it would be the quickest and most effective way of getting them out as quickly as possible. But they kind of failed to tell us up front that they were coming and what they should look like. My guess is they put them in a bland white envelope because they didn't want it screaming economic impact payment so that somebody wouldn't steal it out of the mail. But it just presents a number of challenges, not the least of which people discarding them.
Exactly. And, there's so many times when you get that piece of mail that has some kind of it seems like it has some kind of a credit card or a debit card in it. And it's like, here, just sign here and go ahead and start using this. And so we're so used to getting those that when I feel something in there that feels like that and I look and it looks like, I haven't requested anything from anybody, I toss. So what other kinds of fraud can we expect or are you seeing?
Well, a big concern that we have is that the phone number that you call, and when you get the card, you get a letter, and it explains how to activate the card. And that number, if you even are off by one digit, it's possible that a scammer has grabbed that number, and you'll be calling a scammer instead of the bank and providing them with the information they need. And guess what? They need most of the digits in your Social Security number, and you don't want to be giving that to a scammer. The other issue is if you've kept the card, but you discarded the letter that it came with and you don't have the number anymore, what are you going to do? You're going to do a web search. Say, how do I, activate my EIP debit card? And you'll get a number and it may be a customer service number that looks legitimate, but could be set up by a scammer. So I worry about those things.
Now, there isn't a number on the back of the card, like most cards say, if lost or stolen or if you have a problem, call customer service at blah, blah, blah.
It may have that. I know it's definitely on the letter on what number you need to call to activate, and that is 800-240-8100. If it's on the back of the card, that's great, but people may not look to that if they've tossed the letter, so it's just something to be very, very careful about.
I know when I get my new ATM card from the bank or a new credit card, it generally comes in one of those envelopes that doesn't really look like anything. But the junk mail and that mail comes all at the same time. So it's good that we're talking about this because who knew that the IRS was going to do this and do this in this way? And most people don't even know that the IRS would ever send them money like this. So I would automatically think it was a scam.
Yeah, so would I. And the reason we learned about it was because we had people calling the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline and saying, I just got this card in the mail, and I think it's a scam, but it says it's my stimulus payment. And so we quickly looked it up and realized, no, in fact, that is your stimulus payment. It just happens to be on a prepaid Visa debit card.
Now, what's so odd to me is that when you call in, you have to provide so much information when the IRS themselves are huge supporters of don't ever give anybody all, your information over the phone. And like
I know
we will never
there are
call
so many
you.
red flags. Yeah, so many red flags to all of this. And all we can say is that when you get a plain white envelope from Money Network Cardholder Services from Omaha, Nebraska, and you open it, and it's a Visa debit card, it says Visa on the front, and it says MetaBank NA on the back, that's the issuer. This is your legitimate payment on that card. You got to activate it uncomfortably with 6 of the 9 digits of your Social Security number. And importantly, if somebody calls you or emails you or texts you afterward and say, hey, just want to ensure receipt, give me your PIN number or your debit card number or your Social Security number, that's going to be a scam.
Jeez. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, so much to worry about amongst everything else right now. We got to worry about being scammed when we think we're getting our stimulus check. All right, so
Yeah.
again, let's tell them it's a white envelope and it comes from.
Money Network Cardholder Services in Omaha, Nebraska.
And it'll have a postmark on it that'll show you that that's where it came from. And
It'll be the return address will say that in the window of the envelope.
And then there'll be a number that you call on the letter that's inside where you can actually, get your card going. Because, when you get an ATM card, they say you have to, activate the card by calling this number or go to an ATM. So, again, you have to activate the card. And then the IRS will follow up with a letter letting you know that they have sent you something. So, I guess you could wait until you get the letter if you got one of these just to make sure that it's actually the real thing, that the IRS is sending you a letter. It's just so sad that we have to even go through all these steps now with all this fraud. Are you guys seeing at AARP how really creative and amazing the fraud is getting?
Yeah, sadly, they watch the headlines, and as soon as coronavirus, peeked its head into the United States, we started seeing related scams, whether it was, Sure Cures or invest in this company because they're going to be the maker of the vaccine, to twists on old scams that just have a coronavirus element to them. It's really sad, but they're coming out of the woodworks. They're stealing more money, in this period of time than last year because they have so much more opportunity because of the confusion and the chaos around all of this. And the one thing I would say is if you go to IRS's website that they have set up on coronavirus, it's irs.gov/coronavirus. There's an option on there it says something like, where's my payment? And you should be able to put some information in there, and it should indicate to you whether the payment has been made or not. Otherwise, it's, you might just want to wait for that letter to say that it was sent to you and how it was sent.
Now, how about a website where people can go to get all kinds of information from AARP?
We have a great webpage on all things coronavirus at aarp.org/coronavirus. We also have the helpline I mentioned. If you're unsure of something or if you think you've been victimized by a scammer, you can call and we can help. It's 1-877-908-3360.
And let's give them that number again.
877-908-3360.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to AARP for stepping up with the times and changing that image from the little old lady with the little sweater and glasses and gray hair to the kind of people who actually are, over 50 and still living life. I appreciate that so much from AARP. And please come back.
Thank you so much.
Come back anytime you have something to share with us. I love having you guys on.
Thank you so much for having us.
That's going to wrap it up for today. I'm Josefa Salinas. Until we get together again, stay strong, stay focused. Most of all, stay informed. I'll see you next time right here. As you move out into the week, keep your eyes open, your heart open, and your mind open. There's so many forces trying to push opinions in one direction or the other. Make sure you research everything you see and then decide for yourself. Change is coming. Let's all be a part of it.